Going to try and be relatively quick today, and we're going to talk about lighting. Now, with lighting, as you can see in this room, we've got the key light here, which is, in actual fact, it's not like a proper video light. It's my Broncolor light with the modelling lamp on, which is 300 watt. It's actually very, very noisy because the fan's kicking in because of the heat, but you can't hear that. So it works for me until I get some of the video lights. And then at the back of the computer, I've got two newer lights and a newer light over here. And they're just to create a bit of accent of light and to make it more interesting, because the walls behind me are magnolia. They're pretty bland and it would look pretty cold. Even with this would just light me up, light a bit of the background up, and it'd be pretty boring. So light is really important. And not just when you do photography, but videography as well. So the key thing to take away, I think, personally, and we're talking at a beginner stage, and if you're just doing small bits of work, more so photography, I would say, is being aware that you can use like these small little tools like the newer lights. They're cheap, they're effective, they don't have to be absolutely smack on colour accurate, but just to add accents in there, whether it's in the background or in the foreground, it all adds in. The key thing is that when you're photographing subjects in an area, that if they're going to be the focus or they need lighting, just have some lighting off to one side so it's actually not in the frame. Because the majority of the time, when you look at an image, you don't always look at it and think, well, where is that light coming from? The main thing to remember is that obviously if you are lighting someone, if you've got a strong light coming in from the left-hand side, obviously if they're in darkness, like their face, if they're facing away from that light, possibly, not always, but possibly lighting them from the front to give them a bit of a fill light as such works quite well, as long as it's not too strong, because obviously then it can be a bit awkward to look at. So that's one thing you've got to take into account, the fact that, does this look natural? Is that light a natural light coming in? Is it an accent light which mentally you can see and you can say, yeah, that was there. It's not been added. So that's one key thing you got to remember. You know, it's got to look natural. Now, adding in multicolored gel lights or anything like that, the best thing to do is to build up your scene. So I know within the majority of jobs, you won't have time to do this, do test shoots and keep going back and forth. And you can't light every job you do. So if you're doing static jobs, whether it's portrait photography or interiors, but you're just doing one set location and you're taking a picture of like a person or doing a lifestyle shot, you can add in these lights. Another key thing is that when you're adding these lights in, do it one at a time. This will then give you something to use as a reference, so you can obviously see it in the camera, take the shot, see what it looks like. If you're tethered, quickly look at it on the computer, do a quick grade to see how it's going to look, and build it up from there. You can quickly add lights in. It doesn't take long, so don't ever think, oh God, you know, it's going to take ages to, you know, use these lights, especially with the sort of cheap fill-in LED ones, which you can just turn on and you can just like throw behind a couch, throw behind a plant to give an accent light. It takes seconds. As long as the light isn't in the peripheral, so, you know, if you've got lights where they are sat on something like, say, like a table, and you think, well, you know, you don't necessarily want the light, the full beam of it shining into the camera. You can actually do things like obviously hide it behind something, or put it in and actually just put a fill-in tape or bit of card just in front of the light itself. So you're actually diffusing the light, and it's obviously, you're creating a pool of wherever it should be shining onto. If, like, for instance, I had these lights on the computer stuck on the top, you wouldn't get this diffuse look behind the object. You would obviously get a bright point here, and then obviously when it comes to editing, that can be bad. If you're going for that look, great, crack on, but try and build it. doing what I've done here, I built this up. I always did it with the key light anyway, but then I just started adding in lights just to add a bit more flavour into the scene. I'm not going to win any awards, I'm not going to win any Golden Globes or anything, but it is key to get these lights right. And it is always better when you're with the client to actually just say, look, let's hold on, this isn't working, let's move stuff about, let's redo it. So if you get this right first time, everything else will flow and you'll have less editing to do. You know, especially like with video and stuff, like I know just from doing this quite a bit now that if you get the lighting right and you're not pushing the camera too much, when you get it onto the computer, the grade is really easy. You can sort of get that pop straight away without really pushing stuff, making stuff grainy because, you know, it was underexposed or the lighting wasn't right. So get that right, 90% in the camera, and then everything else will come. If there's any questions, put them in the comments below. But just remember, build your scene with multiple lights if you can. Add them one at a time. Check what you've done and make sure it works. And don't ever be afraid to stop and say, this isn't working, and you will be fine.